Monday show. Guys, you have no idea the madness that is going to ensue on this show, which I can say is going to be more and more the case as we head towards elections. Yes, 2018 elections are already afoot. Anyway, those 2018 stories, a little bit more on that tomorrow and the rest of the week. But today we have nothing but madness. Bob Corker starts World War III with Donald Trump. Yes, he's a Republican senator. That story is amaze balls, okay? Absolutely amazing. You cannot miss the details of that story. That's the next segment. Mike Pence goes to the Colts game, leaves. What a hilarious scam that was. I'll show you, including the photos they sent out. You're gonna love that story. Then we've got beautiful soft towels on the show. Can you guess who talked about beautiful soft towels? Of course, Donald Trump. And what the hell is he talking about? It's an amazing story. Then in the second hour, the FBI has a new category of people to look out for violent actions, and it is called Black Identity Extremists. Completely made up, and it is to lump black activists together with people who are actually doing violence. It is unbelievable. We'll have that story for you. Speaking of unbelievable, did you see the Dove ads? What on God's green earth were they thinking? Completely racist ads, weirdly, clearly, like it's almost a throwback to centuries ago. How could they not have seen that that was racist? It's unreal. And then finally, cocaine on the program. Also in the second hour, cocaine. I will partly defend its use, okay? You'll see, it's a banana show, I'm not kidding. Okay, having said bananas, we go to Trump. Okay, Donald Trump decided he was gonna go on Mike Huckabee's program on Trinity Broadcasting Network. They were gonna talk about different priorities they had. Oh good, that could be useful and informative. Well, they didn't get healthcare passed, and they were gonna talk about that, and Trump's gonna explain that it's coming back, it's never dead, it's a zombie. But the way that he flippantly explains how unimportant it is both hilarious and haunting. Let's watch.
Well, I'm very disappointed with a few people, because honestly, we have some great people in the Republican Party, and they're getting hurt because of a few people that wouldn't raise their hand for health care. And we're gonna get health care too. We're gonna get health care. We'll have health care before the election, but we're gonna get health care. And block granting the money back to the states so the states can take much better care. It's a smaller form of government. It's, in theory, I want to focus on North Korea, I want to focus on Iran, I want to focus on other things. I don't want to focus on fixing somebody's back or their knee or something.
Look, if it was the first time that Donald Trump had said something crazy, I guess our heads would explode more. As it is, they're gonna explode a little bit here. So he just dismissed healthcare with I can't be focusing on fixing people's backs and knees. First of all, newsflash for you, you're not the actual doctor. That's not what we're talking about here. I clarify this because there's some chance he doesn't know. Remember, earlier in his administration, he said, nobody knew this, but healthcare turns out to be complicated. No, everyone in the country but you knew that fact. So now he comes, I don't have time to fix people's backs and knees. Oh my God, imagine if Trump was your doctor. I'd be like, look, whatever I got, I'll keep it. Just don't touch me, okay? But to him, healthcare that affects the lives of, well, obviously hundreds of millions of Americans, all of us, but tens of millions of Americans would lose health insurance under his plan. He's like, I don't have time for your backs and knees. So horribly dismissive. And of course, the usual nonsense braggadocio about, we're gonna get healthcare. We're gonna get healthcare. I know you got a secret plan, right? Like the one you told us about before your election about how you were gonna repeal and replace Obamacare on day one. How'd that turn out? It didn't turn out that well, did it? Okay, so he doesn't care about you. He, in this case, literally doesn't have your back or your knees. Okay, clear enough, I'm moving forward. Okay. I have an announcement for you guys. Hence the bugle. We are starting TYT Investigates. I don't think that that's what I'm supposed to do when I'm introing a segment about how we're gonna do objective journalism. All right, don't worry, I'm not the one doing it. Okay, so remember, guys, we raised $2 million from the audience, from you guys, to do more investigative reporting. Well, those folks were under TYT Politics. Well, we got good news for you. We're doing 2 channels for the price of 1 now. So TYT Politics will remain as it is. It will cover progressive causes, candidates, rallies, protests, just like they've always done. But we've got a new channel now that is starting called TYT Investigates, and that is for hardcore investigative journalism. So we're gonna look into some of the largest companies in the world and in this country. We're gonna look into certainly the largest politicians in the country, some of the bureaucrats that are making the decisions. We're gonna go cover those hard stories that fortunately, I believe a lot of the establishment media still leaves uncovered. And I remember the time that I was at MSNBC and I wanted to investigate a story about Ron Paul. And during the campaign, I told you guys about this. And I went looking around and couldn't find one investigative reporter at MSNBC. There was Michael Isikoff, but he was working for NBC and MSNBC and didn't have time to chase down stories for MSNBC anchors. They don't have investigative reporters in the building. They have people who go on the campaign trail. They have people who go and ask questions at press conferences, but there's almost no investigative reporting done at the cable news stations. So you guys stepped to the plate. You helped us hire a lot of folks. And if you go right now, we're launching tytnetwork.com/investigates today. It's up right now. And you can see some of the articles that they already wrote, and that is from Naomi LaChance, Michael Tracy, and the managing editor, Jonathan Larson. But we've got more coming up for you, including tomorrow. We're gonna drop a story on 2 of America's biggest companies and how they relate to and how they have potentially prevaricated on the biggest program that the Trump administration has coming up. So I want you guys to look out for that in the morning. Obviously follow TYT Investigates on Twitter and Facebook so you can get the latest stories as we break them. And that is their mission, to find the news and break it. So that team can't wait to get going, and they are. So it begins today, and we will throughout the week have different stories for you guys about how what you see on television from some of those corporate leaders as they support some of Trump administration policies are not true. Real hardcore investigative journalism done with facts, done with investigations into the different notes and memos, etc., of some of the government and business officials. You're gonna love it. So check it out right now. Okay, now I'm not done yet with celebrating journalism or any of these similar related topics. So let's go to Jamil next, okay? So Jamil Hill is an anchor for ESPN. She's gotten in a little bit of trouble before for tweeting about how Donald Trump believes in white supremacy. Well, there's a good reason for that. He said during a alt-right, white nationalist, neo-Nazi march in Charlottesville, even after one of the neo-Nazis had murdered someone, that there was, quote, very fine people on both sides. So she called him out for that and his many other comments along similar lines. We covered that story earlier, and obviously we had her back. She's absolutely right, and it is provable. And we showed you the half a dozen instances of clear, incontrovertible racism from Donald Trump. So Jamil Hill did something similar this time, but not about Trump. Let me read you the tweet and then show you ESPN's reaction. This is about Jerry Jones. Now, it's obvious that the White House has gone to a lot of the owners and said, hey, remember you guys are billionaire Republicans. I don't know the internal conversations, but probably had conversations about, hey, you know, the taxpayers subsidize you guys. It's called crony capitalism. We Republicans love it, and we've been practicing it with you for a long time. Plus, I've got $1 trillion tax cuts coming. Would you like some of that? Or would you like me to, make sure that the NFL owners are left out? I don't know that for sure, okay? You know what, we'll have TYT Investigates maybe look into it, see if we can find some facts for you guys. Okay, but obviously, what we can see from the outside is there were pressure put on. So Miami Dolphins owner and the Dallas Cowboys owner, Jerry Jones, came out and said, that's it, we're gonna make sure that the players will be standing during the national anthem. Now remember, Jerry Jones, before the national anthem was played, after Trump had originally done his attack on the NFL players, had gone and knelt with his own players, again, before the anthem, but it was a powerful statement, and they locked arms during the anthem. So, and Trump had criticized them. Jerry Jones, being the money-hungry coward that he is, decided that, of course, he was going to back down and go between money and principles, money and fighting against racism. It's a joke. It's not even close. Give me the money. Show me the money. Okay, so that's the direction Jerry Jones went, and I have much harsher words for him than Jameel Hill does. But Jameel Hill said about that, this play always works. Change happens when advertisers are impacted. If you feel strongly about Jerry Jones' statement, boycott his advertisers. Whoa. Now, to me, I get it. It's a logical way to fight back. I've had my own opinions on whether that should be done to conservative talk show hosts. Generally, I don't love that approach, but that's okay, to each his own, and that's her opinion. God bless her heart. It's perfectly logical and rational to have one just like that if you care about this issue. And of course, ESPN is furious. So they explained Jameel Hill has been suspended for 2 weeks for a second violation of our social media guidelines. What they didn't add but could have is, look, it's one thing if you're gonna go after the president, and that's bad, and we got some blowback from Republicans on it. Advertisers? You're talking about advertisers? No. Now you've touched the face of God. We had a great comedian on here, Maz Jobrani, and he made a great point. He's sometimes goes in this comedy in the Middle East, and he gets heat for it. People say, oh, but you're not allowed to talk about Muhammad or God or Allah or Islam when you go to the Middle East. That's censorship. How could you do comedy there despite the censorship? And he said, look, he used to have a show on Comedy Central, and they would take out all the jokes about advertisers. So he said, our God is tied. Our God is the advertisers that you're not allowed to touch under any circumstances. So she touches that third rail, and ESPN's like, whoa, no way. Suspended. All right, more from ESPN. She previously acknowledged letting her colleagues and company down with an impulsive tweet. I don't think that their issue was her impulse. I think that she thought it through. She thought that was the best strategy in that case to fight back against the oppression of the players by the owners, which is clear and demonstrated by Jerry Jones. Nothing about impulse there at all. She thought it through and she did it. That's not their problem with it. Their problem with it is the money, Lebowski. All right, finally, they also said in the aftermath, all employees were reminded of how individual tweets may reflect negatively on ESPN and that such actions would have consequences, hence this decision. Now look, ESPN as a company is allowed to set any policies they want, and yes, there's clearly lines that you can go past, and then I would say that the company was within their rights to act that way. Now look, first of all, the company's within their rights to act any way they like. I don't have to agree with it though. All right, let me go a little further. We're considering making Jameel Hill an offer here at TYT. We've got TYT Sports. There we do unabashed, irreverent outsider commentary, meaning that we don't have to kiss the ass of the insiders. Luckily, we don't have the NFL rights. We chose not to have them. So we can say any damn thing we like about the NFL or NFL owners or management or the athletes or any of the things that touch sports, whether it's NFL, NBA, or anything else. So look, this is kind of a funny announcement. I don't want to be over dramatic, but so I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. I know it's funny that we're doing it on air, but this is TYT and this is how we roll. Of course, I have to look at more tape of Jameel Hill, and we haven't called her yet, so ESPN, don't panic. She hasn't violated her contract or anything. She hasn't talked to us, but we are very seriously considering making an offer to Jameel Hill because that is truth to power. That's what we do at TYT. So if ESPN and the rest of the mainstream media don't want you speaking truth to power, there is a place for you. It's called the Young Turks. So Jameel Hill, as usual on this, we have your back. Okay, always dramatic here at TYT. You never know what's coming next. Okay, we're moving forward. What's also fun is me taking notes throughout the show. All right, here we go. Now, a substantive policy issue that's coming up, although healthcare is certainly substantive as well. All right, anyways. You remember that a while back, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer went to the White House and they hugged it out with the president. By the way, I don't say that to criticize them. I think they did a great job there. And you know me, I'm not much for telling you that Schumer and Pelosi are doing a great job. They got what they thought was a deal there about how they were going to do DACA. That's for the Dreamers, to make sure that people who were brought here when they were kids and are a great part of our country right now can stay. And apparently Donald Trump agreed to that and did not include a provision on the wall. So they were elated about that, and the news stories came out, and Donald Trump did not deny that. So that was a deal. Now, look, I said at the time, even as I said good work on their part, let's be careful here. Donald Trump is not one known for keeping his word a lot. So today, he has released his quote unquote immigration principles. Well, first of all, that's a news flash. Turns out Donald Trump has principles. Didn't know that. So what are in his immigration principles here if he is going to do the compromise legislation with the Democrats? Well, let's find out. According to The Hill, those principles include cracking down on undocumented children, great start, being sent to the US border from Central and South American countries, toughening of border security and immigration enforcement, and construction of a US-Mexico border wall. Oh, well, there goes that deal. Gone. So it turns out that Donald Trump over the last couple of days has met with 4 Republican senators and congressmen, and with a guy with no actual principles or ideology, whoever's in the room last wins. So they're like, now remember you said wall, so if you're gonna compromise with the Democrats, you need to have the wall. He's like, right, God, I forgot about the wall. Yes, all right, we're gonna need the wall, that's gonna be in our principles. So now Schumer and Pelosi find themselves shocked and chagrined. They put out a joint statement saying the administration can't be serious about compromise or helping the Dreamers if they begin with a list that is an anathema to the Dreamers, to the immigrant community, and to the vast majority of Americans. Well, is he serious about compromising and actually helping the Dreamers? Probably not. Of course not. He doesn't know. He changes his mind day to day, hour to hour, tweet to tweet. So, by the way, that's also good news in this case, because does that mean that this is the final word and he's definitely going to want the wall in the compromise? No, he'll change his mind tomorrow. But more of their reaction, though, from the Democrats. They reiterated on Sunday night that their agreement, quote, explicitly ruled out the border wall. Look, again, it's not a knock on Schumer and Pelosi here. They're doing the best they can with a child in office. And I have a lot of issues with them on other issues, literally, and in other topics. But in this case, they got a good deal. It's not their fault that Trump is a child and a liar and now switch the deal. That's Donald J. Trump for you. So one last one from Schumer and Pelosi. They say, this proposal fails to represent any attempt at compromise, to which I say, of course it does, it's Trump. Now, look, later he might compromise, and this might be an opening position. I told Schumer and Pelosi that, but I'm gonna start with this so that later I can take out a couple of those, but put the wall back in, and then they'll have a back and forth on this. And it might be a perfectly fine negotiation strategy if you're a Republican, but when's the last time there was a successful negotiation by Donald Trump? I know he wrote a book called The Art of the Deal, and again, of course, he didn't write that book. He had a ghostwriter write that book. He couldn't put 2 sentences together if his life depended on it. But the reality is he's had 6 companies go into bankruptcy. God knows how much money he owes the Russians. And then since he's been in office, you've all seen it with your own eyes. He hasn't gotten a single deal, not one deal, not one with the Republicans, not one with the Democrats. So when he originally told them the wall would not be included and they would just go for the DREAM Act, of course he was lying, / didn't know what the hell he was talking about, and had no idea that the wall was this complicated. So we'll have to see how this develops, but it ain't over till it's really, really over, because Trump can change his mind at any time. Is not known for a brilliant negotiation strategy, so likely the answer is the Republicans talked him into it, and God knows if the Republicans or Democrats will talk him into a deal at the end and what will be in that deal. But if you were prematurely celebrating that we were gonna have the DREAM Act pass without the wall in there, come back to reality. And reality ain't pretty. It's filled with Donald Trump's mad musings and his consistent changing of his mind. But we're nowhere near the end of this story, and there is no deal on immigration. Okay, I got to take a quick break here. When we come back, we've got some of the best stories of today. Bob Corker, a Republican senator from Tennessee, goes after Donald Trump. I mean, to say it's full-throated is both dirty and completely correct. And Mike Pence does a PR gimmick at a Colts game. It backfires spectacularly. I think he might owe us some money. And then very beautiful soft towels by Donald Trump. Young Turks. All right, back at the Young Turks, I got tweets for you. I got messages for you. YouTube Super Chat. If you're watching on YouTube, use the Super Chat. I got to keep it real with you. We move your comments up if you do because you're helping the show. And it doesn't have to be overwhelmingly great. Like Nippon Sharma, no disrespect, wonderful message. Hello from London. I'll take it. Hi right back at you, London. Okay, now we go to the tweets. Hashtag TYT Live to talk to us during the show. Shows live, obviously, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on tytnetwork.com. Okay, your mama writes in, that never gets old. To be honest, you got to be a sadist to stay and watch the Colts this season. We're going to go to that story in just a little bit, and you're going to love that story. I hear you. Yes, the Colts are a disaster. Yes, I drafted Andrew Luck because I'm a genius, and he won't be playing forever, apparently. Anyway, Bud Askin says, I call bullshit. VP attendance / departure from NFL game was orchestrated to further Trump's insane agenda to erode civil liberties. Well, Bud, I got your back because I'm going to prove it in a minute. Kyla writes in, super pumped about TYT Investigates. We are too strong and coming for you. Exactly right, Kyla. Everybody check out tytnetwork.com/investigates. Okay, Joe Howard says, do it. I will donate to a drive to get Jameel Hill on the Turks, start that up. That'd be interesting, man. If we do a drive to hire each individual person, and then if we get to the number, they get hired. Interesting. Okay, I'll think about it, Joe. Septian Patterson says, hell, while you're at it, make Van Jones an offer. His talents are wasted in lamestream news. Oh boy, that's a lot of fundraisers. Okay, take it easy, one at a time, okay? And Zoe says, absolutely make an offer so she knows people want to hear her message of truth, hashtag too strong. Well, you got to give it to Jameel. She really does live the TYT motto of too strong. All right, now we're gonna go to the next story, but while we're doing that, it's gonna be an excellent catfight intro. Go. Nothing better than a Republican catfight. This time, in one corner, we obviously have Donald Trump. We have Donald Trump almost every time because it's a catfight. He is Donald J. Troll, the king of the trolls, and he was trolling Bob Corker for reasons I'm going to explain. And in the other corner, Senator Corker from Tennessee, diehard conservative Republican. So this fight is both interesting on its face because you've got two Republicans going against each other, but also the devastating comments by Corker give you an excellent insight into what is actually going on in the White House. So how did it get started in the first place? Well, we go to the New York Times for that explanation. After a report last week, they report that Mr. Tillerson had once referred to Mr. Trump as a moron. Mr. Corker told reporters that Mr. Tillerson was one of 3 officials helping to separate our country from chaos. That's a quote, separate our country from chaos. Those remarks were repeated on Fox News Sunday, which may have prompted Mr. Trump's outburst. Okay, that is fair speculation. I will add, of course it did. He saw it on Fox. He's like, how could Corker possibly say that these are the guys keeping me from chaos? Otherwise, I couldn't do it on my own. And of course, Rex Tillerson's the Secretary of State that he had issues with last week. So Trump decides he's gonna start a war with Bob Corker. Genius idea, that'll help you get votes in the Senate. So he tweets out, Senator Bob Corker, quote, begged me to endorse him for re-election in Tennessee. I said no. That's also in quotes and capitalized because he's a child. And he dropped out, said he could not win without my endorsement. He also wanted to be Secretary of State. I said, again, capitalized and in quotes, no thanks. He's also largely responsible for the horrendous Iran deal. Hence, I would fully expect Corker to be a negative voice and stand in the way of great agenda. Didn't have the guts to run. Okay. Look, if we weren't used to it, a president sending out a tweet like that about someone in his own party would be so mental that that's all that anybody would ever talk about. If these tweets were from President Obama about a Democratic senator, it would have been the largest controversy of his entire 8-year administration. By far. If he was like, Schumer's a baby, I wouldn't endorse him, so he had to run and he wouldn't do it anymore. Didn't have the guts. People would be like, what? What in the world did you just say? But we're used to the president being a lunatic, so we're like, oh yeah, of course he's attacking one of his own colleagues, a fellow Republican, and in vicious ways. And is it true? Everybody knows it's not true. So the New York Times asked Corker about it. Corker says, this is his version. When I told him that just wasn't in the cards about running for re-election. He said, if you run, I'll endorse you. I said, Mr. President, it's just not in the cards. I've already made a decision. So then we began talking about other candidates that were running. Now look, I'm not one to believe any politician, let alone a Republican politician. So it's not like I look at Bob Corker and I think like the rest of the media does, like, oh, that's the honorable, esteemed gentleman from Tennessee. He must be telling the truth. No, I have a great deal of skepticism, and he might be coloring it to his advantage a little bit too. But given the track record of the pathological lies of Donald Trump, who do you think is more likely to be telling the truth? Okay, I'm gonna vote with Corker on this one. So we go forward. He says, I don't know why the president tweets out the things that are not true. You know he does it. Everyone knows he does it, but he does. So now he's talking to the New York Times in response to those tweets from the president over the weekend. But he's not done. So after he talks to the Times, and there's some really powerful quotes I'm gonna get to in a second on that, he then goes back online and get a load of this. I want to talk about it. Wow. Senator Corker tweets, it's a shame the White House has become an adult daycare center. Someone obviously missed their shift this morning. Damn. Drums. Okay, drama in the Republican circles. That basically Bob Corker say, I'm not running for re-election anyway. What are you gonna do to me? Have at it, Hoss. Okay, you wanna do mean tweets? I can do mean tweets. Let's go to war here. And they're about to. So of course Trump, he's like, what? Somebody tweeted against me? Goes back on the tweeter machine and writes, Bob Corker gave us the Iran deal and that's about it. We needed healthcare, we needed tax cuts / reform. We need people that can get the job done. Now that's a reference to the Iran negotiations. Bob Corker, of course, voted against the Iran deal. Why? Because he's a Republican and he's absolutely wrong about that deal. But he allowed a vote in that case, which pissed off conservatives. They're like, you should never allow a vote under Obama. How dare you? And now we don't have war. Thanks a lot, Bob Corker. Even though he actually voted against the deal and would have been perfectly happy with a war apparently. But not good enough. Someone fed that memo to Donald Trump because there's no way in the world he knew the details of that. And he comes out and goes, oh, he gave us the Iran deal. I never liked that guy in the first place. Really? You were meeting with him 2 weeks ago. You were happy to accept his support and praise during the campaign. And by the way, Bob Corker, thank you for coming to the party. You're a little bit late. I guess we'll take it. But we also remember how much you supported Donald Trump as he was running for president. Anyway, now let's go to the devastating quotes. Corker, talking to the New York Times, said, President Trump was treating this office like, quote, a reality show with reckless threats towards other countries that could set the nation, quote, on the path to World War III. A Republican senator saying a Republican president could set us on the path to World War III because of how reckless he is and how he's treating the White House basically as a joke. Wow. This would have been by far the biggest controversy under Obama. They would have had hearing after hearing after hearing. Oh my God, you've got a Democratic senator saying that the Democratic president is gonna bring us to World War III. What does he know that we don't know? We need 1,000 hearings on this. Okay, this will be like any other day. Oh yeah, of course. But this is amazing stuff, guys. Don't get used to how insane this is. So he went on to explain, in an extraordinary, New York Times reports, in an extraordinary rebuke of a president of his own party, Mr. Corker said he was alarmed about a president who acts, quote, like he's doing The Apprentice or something, which of course is true. I think he does think that. By the way, also why he probably fires one person a week. He still thinks he's on The Apprentice. You're fired. Okay, how did I do in the ratings? You idiot, you're in the White House, that's a different job. Okay, he goes on to say, Corker does, he concerns me. He would have to concern anyone who cares about our nation. Look, that is the 7th most amazing and damaging quote from these series of interviews and tweets. But I want you to think about that. A Republican senator saying he would have to concern anyone who cares about our nation. If you're a Republican out there, what you don't know is what the people in power do know. They think that he is mentally unfit to run the presidency, that he's a danger to the whole world. That's what Bob Corker is telling you because he's not running for re-election. He has more. He says, I know for a fact that every single day at the White House, it's a situation of trying to contain him. That's why he made the reference to the adult daycare, because Donald Trump's a child, and every day they have to say, please, Mr. President, you're such an idiot, don't do that. You're gonna start something that is going to have devastating consequences. Of course, they don't say it in that language, because all he cares about is ego. They have to say, Mr. President, you are so, so wonderful, and that tweet was fantastic, but if you could just stop with the fantastic tweets, because it might start a fantastic World War III. Okay, so more. Corker says, as long as there are people like that around, referring to John Kelly and Tillerson and Mattis, he says, who are able to talk him down when he gets spun up, calm him down and continue to work with him before a decision gets made, I think we'll be fine. So he's saying if those guys leave, watch out, because then the child will have no one to take care of him, and God knows what buttons he'll press. He says, I don't think he appreciates that when the President of the United States speaks and says the things that he does, the impact that it has around the world, especially in the region that he's addressing. And so, yeah, it's concerning to me. So when he threatens complete annihilation of North Korea, and says that, hey, ignore our diplomats like Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of State, that obviously has devastating consequences, because that means we cannot solve it through diplomacy. You just told them to ignore our top diplomat. What's the only other option left? A war. And as Bob Corker, deeply conservative Republican, is telling you, is that would be World War III. Don't do it. Watch out for the man-child in office. More, he says a lot of people think that there is some kind of good cop, bad cop act underway, but that's just not true. That's another really important one. I've been saying this from day one. You think he is doing some sort of three-dimensional chess? He wouldn't understand two-dimensional chess if you explained it to him for hours. He'd be like, what do I tweet about this? I don't understand. He can barely understand the concept of checkers. So there's no, Tillerson's saying this and I'm doing this and it's strategy. Every once in a while, certainly Republicans do it, but people on TV too, they'll be like, well, he won the presidency. He ran against Hillary Clinton. Anyway, he won the presidency, maybe he has some deep strategy. There's no strategy. It's just an idiot sitting in his office and watching Fox News and tweeting. That's it, that's the whole explanation. Now it's not just me saying it, it's one of the most respected Republicans in the country saying it. Okay, he says, I know he has hurt in several instances. He's hurt us as it relates to negotiations that were underway by tweeting things out, whether it's North Korea, Iran, or other foreign relations. He goes on and say, look, except for a few people, the vast majority of our caucus understands what we're dealing with here. So he's telling you something that we've been telling you, but you didn't believe it. Or some of you, of course, believe. By the way, let's be clear. 2/3 of the country can't stand Donald Trump. Everybody says, well, I mean, look, he must be popular. No, he's polling at about 35%. That's it. That is not popular. That is deeply unpopular. He had the distinction of beating the single most unpopular candidate we've ever had. And he didn't even beat her in the popular vote. There is no magic. He just figured out to be populist, and the Democratic Party put out an elitist candidate. That's it, the 35% is real. That means people don't like him. Only about 1/3 of the country supports him. There's no magic here, okay? And the entire Republican caucus, according to one of their own, knows what a moron the president is, how dangerous the president is. They're just keeping it from you. Finally, he says, of course they understand the volatility that we're dealing with, and the tremendous amount of work that it takes by people around him to keep him in the middle of the road. By that, he doesn't mean the middle of the road politically. Bob Corker and the Republican caucus is deeply right-wing. They're not concerned about Trump's policies being too moderate. Sometimes he's to the right of them, sometimes he's to the left of them. That's not what the issue here is. They're worried that he's gonna drive off the road. He doesn't know what he's doing. And this is Bob Corker letting the whole country know, we know, the Republican senators, the Republican caucus, we know that we have a madman in office. Well, Senator Corker, if you know, you have a deep responsibility to act. It's not like you can't do anything and you're not retired yet, you're still a United States Senator. And if your whole caucus knows, well, get together with the Democrats and do something about it. Because starting World War III is no light thing and shouldn't involve politics. We do have a dangerous lunatic in the White House. He is a buffoon. He has no idea what he's doing. He's a danger to the country and to the world. And now you've admitted that you know that. So the very next step should obviously be to do something about it. We're looking forward to that report. Okay, so let me give you one little bit of reaction to Corker. Okay. So Senator Bob Corker comes out and says that Donald Trump could start World War III, and that the adults around him are in the act of doing adult daycare, and that if it wasn't for the adults in the room, that the child known as the President Trump could start any degree of conflict in the world, and it would be completely reckless and drive off the road. So first, some reporters' reactions to this. Benji Sarlin writes in, Corker's sudden turn makes you wonder what other senators would be saying if they never had to worry about re-election again. That's certainly true. And apparently, according to Corker, the entire caucus, almost the entire caucus, knows that in fact the president is dangerous and a child. So Haley Bird then comes in and says, Bob Corker goes on the record with a view many congressional Republicans have privately expressed for months. And we had Susan Collins caught on tape a little while back talking to a Democratic colleague, also saying that she's worried about the mental stability of Donald Trump. Look, these are weird, amazing times where we have a president who is mentally unstable. Look, that's not a political attack, it's not hyperbole. That is, according to Republicans, the state of affairs today. Now, Bob Corker has admitted it publicly, some have been caught admitting it privately, but apparently almost all of them know it. This is the state of the world. So, of course, what is the administration going to do? They're going to counterattack. Of course! So they do it with Kellyanne Conway. This ought to be good. First, she sends a tweet. She says about Bob Corker's quotes, incredibly irresponsible. Really? You're gonna say someone else's tweets are incredibly irresponsible? That's hilarious. Here she is on TV saying the same thing.
We've all worked with Senator Corker over the years. We thank him for his service, but I find tweets like this to be incredibly irresponsible. It adds to the insulting that the mainstream media and the president's detractors, almost a year after this election, they still can't accept the election results. It adds to their ability and their cover to speak about a president of the United States, the president of the United States, in ways that no president should be talked about.
How about no president should ever talk about other people in those ways? I mean, what kind of a president goes around tweeting about how, oh, well, he begged for my endorsement about Bob Corker? Those are tweets. And of course, as always, who started it? Donald Trump started it. He started with his insane, irresponsible tweets against a fellow Republican. Look, I love Republican infighting. I like tacos, so God bless. But this is serious stuff. This isn't about normal political infighting. This is about we've got a dangerous guy in office. And they turn around going, can you believe that Bob Corker has made some irresponsible tweets? With a straight face. When you need someone to say something preposterous, but do it with a straight face, Kellyanne Conway is your person for that. But she's not alone. They had tweeted out that segment from Fox and Friends, but we've got more Fox outrage at everyone but Trump.
Whatever Bob Corker thought, he could have done it personally and privately. The president takes his calls, they golf together. So to go public with these critiques are just, I think it's self-serving.
Disrespectful.
Yeah.
But Trump went public first. He went and sent the tweets saying that he basically ran Bob Corker out of town and that he wouldn't endorse him and that's why he had to run and he has no guts. And all that stuff, and you just conveniently leave that out and go, yeah, you're irresponsible. I can't believe this. No respect. Had to do it publicly. Why don't you just call him? Why didn't Donald Trump call him? Why didn't Donald Trump call his own Secretary of State instead of saying, hey, give it a break, Rex. Don't do diplomacy with North Korea. You've got a phone. It's the White House. Make the call. But if the president needs fluffing, Fox and Friends is there for him. They are ready to step up and serve. They serve at the pleasure of the president. Indeed. Okay, moving to Pence. So Mike Pence went to a football game, kind of. So of course he was the governor of Indiana before he became vice president. My favorite thing that I quote every once in a while is that in introducing him at the RNC, they said, "Oh, everybody in Indiana knows Mike. He's got a nickname there. We call him Mike." No, that's not a nickname. That's his actual name. Anyway, so he went, but he found out, oh my God, that people are kneeling during the national anthem. Did you guys know that? He didn't know that. So he went to the Colts game, finds out, and they're playing the 49ers. That's the team that Kaepernick used to be on. Color him surprised to find out that people are disrespecting the anthem. So he gets up and walks out. And then he has these tweets ready immediately afterwards. And he tweets out, "I left today's Colts game because the President of the United States said I will not dignify any event that disrespects our soldiers, our flag, or our national anthem." Wow, okay. And he says, "Now more than ever, we should rally around our flag and everything that unites us." One more. "While everyone is entitled to their own opinions, I don't think it's too much to ask NFL players to respect the flag and our national anthem." So he just, these guys who are kneeling, I didn't see that coming. But you know what? I'm not going to watch the game, even though I had come to watch the football game here because I'm a big football fan. That's why they call me Mike, okay? And he walked right out. And then people start to notice something funny. So here's a tweet that Mike Pence sent of a picture of him at a football game, at a Colts game. Here, let's look to put it up. Now, this is from 2014, cheering our Colts with First Lady of Indiana as they kick off the second half. Go Colts, beat the Jaguars. So that's from 3 years ago. Now show me the tweet from yesterday. Wait a minute, that looks to be the same picture, but just ever so slightly darker. Saying, "Looking forward to cheering for our Colts and honoring the great career of Peyton Manning." That's another thing they were doing yesterday at Lucas Oil Stadium today. Go Colts, he's ready for it. Hey, at least he was 3 years ago. So here's the pictures side by side. Yep, that's the same shirts on the people behind him. That's the same exact picture. Just try it a little bit hard. You couldn't take a picture. You were there for 30 seconds. You couldn't take a picture, like maybe even you, like huffing and puffing, like, like as you're looking at the people kneeling. They can't help themselves. They're pathological liars. They have to lie about everything. So was this a PR stunt? Of course it was. They wasted our taxpayer dollars. I'll get to that in a second. But as people are debating yesterday whether it was a PR stunt and he meant to walk out the whole time, and that's why he bothered going all the way to Indianapolis to walk out of a game and not actually watch it. Well, Donald Trump, in his usual idiotic ways, solved it for us by admitting it was a PR stunt. Now, he's too stupid to realize he admitted it, but this is what he tweeted afterwards. He said, "I asked Vice President Pence to leave the stadium if any players kneeled, disrespecting our country. I am proud of him and Second Lady Karen." You weren't supposed to say that in public. The whole plan was Pence goes there, I'm just going to watch a game, man, and honor Peyton Manning. You see that picture I put in from 3 years ago, right? And then he finds out that they're kneeling, he's outraged, and in that outrage, he walks out. That doesn't work if you tell us afterwards that you put him up to it. It's dangerous to have a man this stupid in the White House. So he blows the whole thing, of course, as usual. Now we go to others. Abby Phillip says, seems to imply, referring to that tweet, the early departure was planned at great taxpayer expense. That's exactly what it implies. But then Peter Alexander from NBC News has an important component to this that actually is breaking news. He says, "Flag, was Pence leaving Colts game a political stunt? Reporters were told to stay in the van because, quote, there may be an early departure from the game." So, ladies and gentlemen, this issue is solved. It was definitely a PR stunt. They told the reporters, don't go anywhere, we're going to be leaving soon. They knew that their players were going to kneel. They knew that they were going to leave, pretending to be outraged. And they did the whole trip because of that. So then CNN, good job here of tallying the numbers. Their estimate of how much that trip cost American taxpayers, $242,500. So the guys who claim that they care about balanced budgets and fiscal responsibility and draining the swamp just threw $250,000 out to do a political stunt for themselves. It is beyond gross. So according to CNN, the Republican National Committee will reimburse some of the costs of Pence's flight to Los Angeles because Pence is attending a political event there. So this is to cover their ass afterwards when Trump admits that it was a PR stunt, and they're like, God damn it. Now, okay, yeah. We mean, of course, we'll cover not even all the costs, but some of the costs, because he was also going to LA. By the way, what was he going to LA for? Of course, a fundraiser, where he was gonna go talk to Republican donors and say, remember, we're getting you trillions of dollars in tax cuts. And then he did the PR stunt on his way to the important work of doing legalized bribery. So Citizens for Ethics crew tweets out, can we just make it through a weekend without this administration abusing taxpayer dollars with jet travel? And obviously that's a reference to all the different controversies related to that. Ryan Zinke is the latest, but Tom Price already resigned, the Health and Human Services Secretary, because of how much he abused taxpayer money in his private travels, and now we have the Vice President doing it for political reasons. But I think Eric Reed put it best afterwards. He's a member of the 49ers who were playing the Colts that day, and here's what he had to say.
My honest reaction, first off, does anybody know the last time he's been to a football game? Okay, with that being said, he tweeted out a 3-year-old photo from at a Colts game. So with the information that I have, the last time he's been to a Colts game was 3 years ago. So this looks like a PR stunt to me. He knew our team has had the most players protests. He knew that we were probably gonna do it again. And so this is what systemic oppression looks like. A man with power comes to the game, tweets a couple of things out and leaves the game with an attempt to thwart our efforts.
This is what systemic oppression looks like. Couldn't have said it better myself. Now remember, when the NFL owners are basically de facto doing a blockade on Colin Kaepernick and won't let him back in the league, when it is preposterous to claim that he's not one of the top 100 quarterbacks in the country. It is insane to claim that. Okay, that's one thing. They're allowed to do that. It's private enterprise. I completely disagree with their actions. I protest their actions, but that is not a First Amendment issue because the NFL, as big as it is not the US government. But now when you have the US government in the form of the vice president coming to games to intimidate people that are exercising their First Amendment rights, well, now we've got a government issue, we've got a First Amendment issue. So it's not just that they wasted our money. It's not just that it was a cheap, stupid political stunt. But now we're having some significant First Amendment issues as the government tries to intimidate the freedom of speech. That's a core constitutional problem. And Mike Pence and Donald Trump revel in it. And that's the state of the White House today. Okay, I gotta take a quick break here. When we come back, very beautiful, soft towels. Donald Trump explains why he threw towels in Puerto Rico. You're not gonna be surprised to find out that there are amazing parts of that answer. Don't miss that. And how the Russians planned a right-wing neo-Nazi protest in America, and it worked. Too many amazing stories in today's show. Come right back, we'll share it with you.
TYT is unique in a lot of ways.
I'm gonna ask some uncomfortable questions.
I feel like I missed out.
So what is going on?
If I don't eat, my head's gonna explode.
As I take my shirt off, just goes, is that your body?
Now we move to inappropriate story number 2.
I just never felt guilty about masturbation.
It's amazing.
I could take partial credit for opening up your sexuality.
I was the kid in the pool with the shirt off. Let's just call it what it is. I was that kid.
Well, you deal with the bitch side of me, right? But you're my boss, so that's what happens.
I think we're more likely to win. They do see it from a frame of the rich and the powerful, and they don't realize that.
The last time that happened, we elected Abraham Lincoln.
I don't know, wouldn't it be wonderful if we unfucked the world?
You and I are a disaster.
Don't stereotype all cops, don't stereotype all anything.
Blowing up like Dave Kohler on Twitter.
That's pretty good progress.
I didn't know you could leave positive comments.
It's a very TYT thing. I'll tell you a whole bunch of depressing stuff so that at the end I can give you hope. Winning is, in terms of change and positive change,
is not just possible, it's inevitable.
Great time to be alive.
Let's burn this mother down. How's that what you're saying?
Fuck it, let's go do it. And that's why I keep thanking you guys for being members. Because together, we got their attention.
Thanks for tuning in, and as always, stay strong.
Been easy for me. I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million. All my life, I was told no.
He said I had small hands. They're not small. I never heard that one before.
They'd rather lose to Republicans than have a progressive win with them. That's how dumb the corporate Democrats are.
It's the Democrats who lull you to sleep, and at the end of the day, they're the ones who push the right-wing agenda.
Most of the people are either unemployed, underemployed, or fucked.
This is why you lost to Trump, you fucking moron. What the fuck is wrong with you? Whoever wrote that, I'm sure they were typing with one hand and going like this with you. The Democrats are dead. The way you feel right now, that's how a chump feels. Do not freak out.
Hey Dave, as you can probably see, Skype froze. Frozen crash.
You know, I'm watching that documentary on the Vietnam War, and there was a TV journalist in the middle of some tiny little village in Vietnam doing live TV as the soldiers were burning the Vietnamese huts, and it didn't crash. And that was 1965, and he was in Vietnam.
All right, back on a Young Turks. Sloopy Drew writes in, what's Super Chat? Does it come with a cape? All right, that's fun. I don't know, go to YouTube and find out. YouTube.com/TYT. When the show's live, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, you not only get the show, you get the chats. Well, the chat room is dark and full of terrors. But if you've written a fun or interesting or funny message on YouTube Super Chat, that actually helps the show by contributing to the show, and we read some of those. That's what it is. I answered it very literally, I grant you that. Tom Sherry says, what have you done, America? You've elected a dangerous madman with access to nuclear weapons. Yeah, that's what we did, Tom. That's what we did. Okay, and finally, Chris Bradshaw says, you have to be a really special kind of snowflake to travel halfway across the country just to act offended. Great point, Chris, exactly right. Okay, now, let's go to this snowflake over here. Okay. I mean, God, aren't they amazing? Everything is projection. They call everybody snowflakes, and no one gets more easily offended than Trump, which is part of the point of this story. All right, so let me give it to you. Donald Trump went on Mike Huckabee's program on Trinity Broadcasting Network. So Huckabee's former governor of Arkansas ran against Donald Trump briefly, got his ass handed to him, and now spends most of his time sucking up to him. But they started the interview very informally, talking about Huckabee's daughter, who's Huckabee Sanders, the press secretary for Donald Trump. Oh, this is cute. Let's watch.
President, let me get right to the most important question I'm going to ask you today. Tell me, how good is your press secretary?
Well, I think she's perhaps one of the most talented I've ever known. She's, and actually, first of all, your daughter is a great person. She is a great human being, and she stepped in, and it's not easy. You know, you have a lot of haters out there screaming questions. When I look at those people, they're just hating. They never thought this was going to happen, and it happened for a lot of good reasons. But she has done it with brilliance and with coolness, and we're very, very happy with the job she's doing. Sarah's a very exceptional person. You did a good job. Your wife did a better job, probably.
My wife did a better job, and just know that we will forever vote for you for having just said those wonderful things about my daughter.
I understand that.
Oh, okay, all right. Now that circle jerk is done, in that case, quite literally, since they're both jerks, I think you got it. Anyway, let's go to the heart of this interview. This is about the criticism he took for his attitude in Puerto Rico. Look, I don't want to rehash the whole thing, but he went over there and he's like, you put our budget out of whack. He implied that Puerto Ricans were lazy and were not helping in their own rescue efforts. He went after the mayor. And then he thought he was having a good time, so he started throwing paper towels when he was giving away much needed supplies. Here, let's take a look at that video real quick. That's the president. In the middle of a disaster. If it was another story and he went and he's doing a campaign stop, that's actually kind of fun. But people died. And he's like, Hurricane Katrina was bigger. That was a real hurricane. But okay, all right, fine. Hey, let's have some fun. And he told some people that to have a good time. Oh my God. So Huckabee, of course, is going to do a very hard-hitting interview about this. Let's watch.
We really did a good job. I mean, one example, they had these beautiful soft towels, very good towels. And I came in and there was a crowd of a lot of people and they were screaming and they were loving everything. And I was having fun, they were having fun. They said, throw them to me, Mr. President. And so I'm doing some of the.
They had these beautiful soft towels. Everything has to be over the top. They're just normal paper towels. I have no idea how beautiful or soft they are. These beautiful soft towels, okay? And people are like, throw them to me. So I threw them to him. First of all, even if they told you to throw them to him, you're the president. You should just pause for a second and go, wait, is that a good idea or does this look really stupid? So now, but it turns out, of course, it's the media's fault. All these are awesome. Wait till you get to the last clip. You're gonna love it. All right, here we go. Here's more.
So the next day they said, it was so disrespectful to the people. It was just a made up thing. And also when I walked in, the cheering was incredible.
You were a rock star. I saw the video of it.
It was crazy. The cheering was deafening. They turned down the sound so that you just heard the announcers, Donald Trump.
Oh, you were a rock star. You were, man, it was crazy. I was such a big star. It was a hurricane. You were supposed to go to help with relief because people had died, and at that point, we still couldn't reach folks because communication was down, the roads were down. And they said, I was a rock star, I was great. The media is not telling the truth about how great I was. The people of Puerto Rico loved me. Yeah, let's do a poll, see if that's true. But it isn't about you. God, he is so self-absorbed. He's such a child. He's such an egomaniac. And Huckabee is there helping him. Like, you're almost finished, Donald. Keep going. Oh, you're such a rock star. Oh, you're almost there, Donald. So now he's going to go after his critics. Watch.
We have a mayor of San Juan, Puerto Rico, who didn't attend meetings, who didn't work with FEMA, who really did not do a very good job. In fact, did a very poor job. And she was the lone voice that we saw. And of course, that's the only voice the media wanted to talk to. And she's running for governor. Just, big surprise. I know you're shocked to hear that. She's running for governor. But she's not a capable person. And my people were telling me that to start off with. So we did a great job.
Remember, everybody, we did a great job. I'm awesome. I want you to remember that. And anybody who's ever criticized me because their people are suffering and dying, they're running for governor. Yeah, she's terrible, terrible. Maybe you should help her recover from the hurricane. No. She criticized me. I hate her. Okay, how about people who praise you? Ooh, that's a different story. Let's watch.
The governor is a terrific guy who was praising the job we've done. Almost every mayor, I think there's over 70, were praising us. And they were praising us. The congresswoman who's terrific, single congresswoman, represents, Congresswoman Jennifer Gonzalez-Colon. She represents 3.5 million people, actually the most of any congressperson. But she has been incredible in her praise of the job we've done.
Well, look, I give him credit. He pulled out the name. For a second there, you all thought he wasn't going to be able to say the name, right? Anyway, now remember, everybody, all about me. Everybody's praising me. What, hurricane, what? Coming in, what's that? Oh, people died. Remember, back to the praise of me, Megalomaniac 101. Okay, now here comes the ending.
The media is really the word. I think one of the greatest of all terms I've come up with is fake. I guess other people have used it perhaps over the years, but I've never noticed it.
I mean, it's serious times, and the hurricanes are serious. The guy can start World War III, but really, no one else had used the word fake before. Well, at least you hadn't noticed it. Edwin, anybody use the word? I haven't noticed it. That's the first time I've heard the word fake. Even if he meant fake news, the phrase fake news, first of all, has of course existed in the past, but was used about the fake news websites that were supporting him during the election. That's where it came from. I invented the word fake, and have I told you during this interview how great I am? This national embarrassment is our president. We got to get him out of office immediately, before God knows what he does with those beautiful soft towels. Only a third of the country supports you, Mr. President. Yeah, not true. That's a word I invented called fake. In fact, most people support me. They love me. They praise me all the time. It's crazy. It's crazy. The support for me is deafening. And Huckabee's going there. Oh yeah, Mr. President, you're so right. Mr. President, go get him. Somebody bring him some beautiful soft towels. Well, by the end, unfortunately, they did need some towels to wipe up. Gross. Okay. Do I have time for the last story? I do not. I will save this for tomorrow. This is an amazing story of how the Russians are instigating the right wing here in America, and it's working. Even getting them to do protests. So we'll do that on the show tomorrow. Let's go to the second hour here, where there's some amazing stories. FBI is now saying that black activists are, quote, black identity extremists, dubbed with an unbelievably racist ad. We'll show that to you. You'll see it. And then cocaine on the program. We'll be back.
I'm Hassan Piker. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Hassan D. Piker and on Twitter at Hassan the Hun. And this has been The Breakdown. Was that good, guys?
Okay. Not enough hashtag use. Hashtag abs, hashtag model, hashtag woke bay.
Hashtag one black friend.
I'm thinking more rings.
I got him here.
You need more accessories. Way more accessories.
I don't know where to put it.
Come on, throw these on. Woke bay, not sleep bay.
More sexy too.
When's the last time you posted on Instagram? Too long. Come on, man. No, you need to post at least once an hour. What's the outfit of the day today? Is this what you're going with? No. We need more accessories. We need.
This doesn't have anything to do. It doesn't.
For your gay audience, man.
Yeah, the gays love you, man.
Okay. What else? What else do I need to do?
You have haven't appropriated a culture in a week.
We have like a kimono or something.
Damn, that looks good on you, dude.
Perfect. How many rings you got on? Do we have any more?
I got 3 more.
Yeah, can we get more rings on this?
And when you're done, kiss the ring. Look at the camera. Kiss the ring. Maybe like a little wink.
Islam's role in terrorism and all the Huffington Post articles weren't doing well. I wasn't.
How many likes did our last outfit of the day picture have?
Only like 100,000.
So I think that's where your focus needs to be. I hear you on all the blah, blah, blah social issue. We need to focus on followers.
Kids in Yemen.
We don't care if you sleep at night.
Dab, dab.
Okay, I'll dab.
There you go.
More.
Talk about yourself more.
I'm Hassan Piker. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram.
Yeah, be more into it.
Instagram is important for me. Americans losing access to healthcare coverage.
I hear you. Attack Tommy more.
I've done it. So many. She shoots out of her living room now. It's like punching down now.
We're okay with that. But it helps the brand.
We made you. We got you verified.
You're nothing without us.
So I don't know what else I need to do here.
Dude, just take off that shirt.
That's exactly why Tommy Lauren is stupid. I hate you. I'm Hassan Piker. Follow me on Instagram.
#WokeBay.
#WokeBay. Please follow me. Please.
You have in common with your daughter?
I was going to say sex, but I can't relate that.
He said I had small hands. They're not small, are they? I never heard that one before.
Back on the Young Turks. Hannah Cranston, Brett Ehrlich. Everybody check out youtube.com/think tank, youtube.com/poptrigger. Okay. So we're gonna do a wonderful second hour for you guys. First, some tweets. Chelsea Charles writes in, he strokes his own ego so much it's disgusting. I've never even met anyone in real life that's half as bad as him. Why is Brett Ehrlich on the show?
No, that's a good question. I was like, that makes sense. Yeah, I've heard that one before. Usually from me as I stare deeply into my eyes in the mirror right before, what am I doing here? It's nice to hear from someone else.
Okay, so obviously it was saying that about Trump and not Brett. I added that last part. You know what that was? That was fake news. Fake news about Twitter. So, but it's a good point, and that's why I wanted to read it. Like, if you met someone like Donald Trump in real life, it would be everyone would like recoil. Like if we went to a lunch together, the three of us, with a guy who kept saying, "I'm the best. I have the best words. I'm like a smart person." And everybody loves me. You'd be like, well, you are the weirdest, most disturbing person I've ever met.
Unless they were 7.
Right.
If they're 7, you still try to stop it, but at least you understand it.
I mean, you keep hearing that time and time again from people who were in his like social network in New York. People hated him. It wasn't they were like, oh, this is a great guy. I'd like to party with him. People were like, this guy kind of sucks. So then we'll put him in the presidency.
Yeah, no, I know some folks, some finance and legal folks that know Donald Trump, and they had universal disdain for him.
Yeah.
Because they don't respect his intelligence at all, let alone the rest of it. So anyway, more. Jeff Guiadati, sorry Jeff, butchered that, says, I can totally see Trump awarding himself the Medal of Honor at some point. What a narcissistic, sociopathic douchebag. But you know what, that's so insane. But unless someone stopped him, I could see him being like, that looks shiny. I'd like that, right?
Yeah, there's a thing in The Office where Dwight makes himself his own assistant because he's the only person who's good enough to be the assistant to his assistant. It sounds like that. It's like a ridiculous sitcom premise.
Yeah.
And it has some chance of coming true. And finally, Captain Jinglepants writes in.
Best name.
Yes. When Trump leaves the presidency in shame, he's going to say he's had the most successful presidency in history. He is. Yeah. Even when he resigns, in absolute horrific shame, he will go, no, I had the best presidency. I done so well, I wrapped it up early.
Yeah. Drop the mic, that's what that is.
Mission was already accomplished. Didn't need to be there anymore. All right, Hannah, what do you got for us?
All right. This morning, Donald Trump released a statement proclaiming today Columbus Day. Now, in this proclamation, Trump describes Christopher Columbus's contributions to the Americas, which unfortunately included mass killings, rapings, and dismembering. But nonetheless, Trump wrote, the permanent arrival of Europeans to the Americas was a transformative event that undeniably and fundamentally changed the course of human history and set the stage for the development of our great nation. Therefore, on Columbus Day, we honor the skilled navigator and man of faith whose courageous feat brought together continents and has inspired countless others to pursue their dreams and convictions, even in the face of extreme doubt and tremendous adversity. I call upon the people of the United States to observe this day with appropriate ceremonies and activities. I also direct that the flag of the United States be displayed on all public buildings on the appointed day in honor of our diverse history and all who have contributed to shaping this nation. Okay. That was a lot to unpack, but unfortunately, historical evidence shows that Trump's facts might be alternative facts. And according to Bartolomé de las Casas, who participated in these expeditions, but actually became one of the primary chroniclers of Columbus, and he wrote that this man of faith actually carried out some pretty faithless actions. So he wrote, endless testimonies prove the mild and pacific temperament of the natives. But our work was to exasperate, ravage, kill, mangle, and destroy. And the Christians, with their horses and swords and pikes, began to carry out massacres and strange cruelties against them. They attacked the towns and spared neither the children nor the aged, nor pregnant women, nor women in childbed, not only stabbing them and dismembering them, but cutting them to pieces as if dealing with sheep in the slaughterhouse. They laid bets as to who, with one stroke of the sword, could split a man in two, or could cut off his head, or spill out his entrails with a single stroke of the pike. Now, even one of Columbus's own crew members actually wrote and bragged about his crimes. He wrote, while I was in the boat, I captured a very beautiful Carib woman whom the said Lord Admiral gave to me. When I had taken her to my cabin, she was naked, as was their custom. I was filled with the desire to take my pleasure with her and attempted to satisfy my desire. She was unwilling and so treated me with her nails that I wished I had never begun. But to cut a long story short, I then took a piece of rope and whipped her soundly, and she let forth such incredible screams that you would not have believed your ears. Eventually, we came to such terms, I assure you, that you would have thought that she had been brought up in a school for whores. So here are...
So I just wanted to jump in for a second here.
Yeah.
That was a lot. Okay, so first of all, back to Trump's statements, he didn't write those, of course. It had words beyond a third grader's capabilities.
He only used tremendous once.
Yes.
I know, I saw that. I was like, that must have been ad-libbed, but it's a statement.
Yeah, a transformative event. That is not a phrase Donald Trump has ever said.
The only thing that stood out to me in his statement that, I mean, probably written by Stephen Miller, who like is getting the whisperings from Bannon in his ear. But when he talks about the permanent arrival of Europeans to the Americas, that is like dog whistling, like, all right, I'm here for you, I'm calling for you. We have European, roots and things like that. I mean, that's what he's calling for.
There's a call out to the diverse makeup of the nation, or he uses the word diverse, but if you look through the rest of that proclamation, things that weren't necessarily quoted in there, they go off on a tangent about Italian Americans because Christopher, and the diversity that it seems that they're lauding is a diversity of mixed European influences, and not, of course, I mean, the statements about indigenous peoples have been in similar proclamations about Columbus Day in the past. The ones that everyone's come to expect. The part where it says Christopher Columbus made a journey across the ocean, and we would be remiss if we did not take into consideration the vast tragedy that unfolded to people who already lived there.
Right.
But this is very much in complete concert with the strategy of the Trump campaign to say, make America great again, go back to basic things racists say, which is, what happened to Columbus Day? When we just had Columbus Day and we were happy that he came across the ocean blue in 1492. I remember that when I was in grade school in knee pants.
Yeah, so look, we're about to show you the depth of the massacres that Columbus committed. And even just having read those things, and the first set of quotes were from a missionary that was there, so a man of actual faith, and within historical context. And he couldn't believe the massacres and the butchering that was going on at that time, not later, okay? And that is the Lord Admiral is Columbus authorizing the rape of the women there and of the entire land that they saw. But so what Trump's team did here was they doubled down on Columbus's awesome, and he brought white Europeans here, which is great, okay? The indigenous thing is a little unfortunate, right? But when you see the scope of how unfortunate it was, to then say, yeah, Columbus, he's our homeboy, and we're gonna celebrate that guy is unbelievable. And look, when I was a kid, I celebrated Columbus Day because I don't know, that's what I was taught. And and we're like, oh, great, he discovered America. Even then, I thought this is a little weird. Seems like he met people, so how could he have discovered the continent if there were already people there?
Right.
But as Hannah's about to tell you, there wasn't much left after him.
When the Spanish came, they completely decimated the native populations. In fact, there were about 300,000 inhabitants of Hispaniola in 1492. Between 1494 and 1496, 100,000 had died, half due to mass suicide because they did not want to give in to the Spanish. And by 1508, the population was down to 60,000. And by 1548, it was estimated to be only 500. Not to mention all of the rapings. I mean, he sold 9 and 10-year-old girls into like sexual slavery. He would like cut off people's ears. They would tie some of the natives together, and instead of, if it felt like it was too cumbersome to untie them, they would just cut off their heads because they didn't want to untie them. I mean, this is like just absolutely disgusting, and the atrocities of this, and to not even like really mention that in your statement, and even recognize that so many cities and states around the country now are saying that they're not celebrating Columbus Day, and in fact they're celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day. It seems like a pretty glaring, I don't know if it was an oversight or something on purpose. Now I do want to show you guys these cities and the states who celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day instead of Columbus Day. So I applaud them on doing that. I think Los Angeles is not on there, but should be included on there. They recently said that we were going to be celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day instead.
Yeah.
So
We just passed it a little while ago in Los Angeles.
Right.
So that's good news. That's just recognizing history. Nobody's saying you wipe it off the history books. In fact, we should study it way more than we do. And if you're wondering about the mass suicides, I mean, look, you could already tell from all the things that Hannah said, but Columbus would demand of not only the adults but the children a certain amount of gold every day that they bring. But there wasn't that much gold in Hispaniola. But he went on the voyage for greed, and he was going to destroy everything in his path to get the gold. And so if they couldn't get the gold, he'd chop off one of their hands and tie it around their necks. And they'd have to try to get it with the rest of their hands. So, and then there was the nonstop rape, et cetera. And the killings were so indiscriminate anyway. All they had was, it seemed, a short, brutal life as long as Columbus was in charge, until they would one day be killed. That's part of why they did mass suicides. Right. So it almost can't get worse. They went from 300,000 people down to 500. It's as big a massacre or genocide as, and certainly within the historical context of how many people were there per capita, as anyone has ever seen. To celebrate that guy is just
You're
abhorrent.
celebrating a monster. You're celebrating a monster. And I think, a lot of history books cut out, like especially when you're younger, they cut out the atrocities and the horrible acts that he committed. But it's so important to include those and to teach kids that, and to teach kids of sometimes of our ugly history. And I know that we don't like to admit to that, and we don't like to admit to the evil that we've committed as a country sometimes, or as a people sometimes, but it's so important to do so that we don't repeat history, and that we don't try to wipe out, different cultures like some people would like to see right now.
Yeah, and if you loved Columbus Day as a kid, this information is not an affront towards you personally. And I feel like when facts come out about what happened really with Columbus, a lot of folks who support the traditional interpretation of Columbus Day say, you're fighting back against me personally. And the answer is no, this is just more information, because it's very obvious that this simple definition of Columbus coming over here to the Americas and setting up the possibility for exploration of the New World, that's just way too simple, because it's very obvious that it was at the expense of the people who lived here before.
But you know what, I will end on a fun note on this otherwise horribly tragic story by saying that I have a solution for how to fix this. I think actually if Trump makes it to the next Indigenous Peoples Day, that he would call Columbus Day, next year around.
Don't say such things.
There's no wood. There's no wood. Here it is, I got you.
Okay, I think we can convince him to get rid of a Columbus Day if we just explain to him that they came over on the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, and they were undocumented immigrants.
So good.
All right.
Okay, all right. What's next?
Speaking of more people who don't like immigrants, on Saturday night, the alt-right returned to Charlottesville to hold a flash mob rally in their own terms. So take a look at this picture.
They really do give a different meaning to flash mob.
Yeah, flash mob is over.
Seriously.
Can we say now officially the flash mob is over party can begin?
It is. Now the rally was only about 50 people, during which Richard Spencer was speaking into a megaphone, yelling, "You will not replace us." They sang a Confederate battle song. The rally only lasted about 10 minutes, but during this time, he had these lovely words to share with the participants.
This town, Charlottesville, Robert E. Lee, the University of Virginia, the ideal of an academical village, all of that derives from our people, and it derives from no one else. And all of you know it. So you either have to be fully consistent, go full Bolshevik on us, tear it all down, cover it all up. I don't think you have the balls to do it, to be honest. But that's what you should do if you actually were consistent. Or you can recognize that we have a place in this country. We have a place in this conversation. We have the right to exist. We have the right to advocate for our interests, for our people. We are the historic majority. We define this country, not anyone else. This country ultimately belongs to us in terms of what it means, in terms of its history, and in terms of its future. So get used to that. Or show that you have some balls, be consistent, and tear it all down. I want to watch you try. All right, gentlemen, let's get out of here.
All right, so not only did he use like the early 2000s term of flash mob, he also decided to completely ignore the fact of the black people who came to this country and really built this country, saying that he built it. All right, whatever. He also sent out a little video to his followers. Take a look.
Hey everyone, Charlottesville 3.0 was a great success and it was a lot of fun. We came, we triggered, we left. We did an in and out flash mob. We did some singing, we did some chanting, some speeches. We got in and out. There were no injuries, no major confrontations. We demonstrated that we came in peace in May. We came in peace in July. We were badly mistreated and we came in peace tonight. It was a great success and we're gonna do it again. This definitely is a model that should be repeated. All right, talk to you guys soon.
So he says they came in peace. Now the chant "You will not replace us" is a confusing one, because when I first saw it after the Charlottesville story broke, I'm like, who's replacing you and why are they, I don't get it. Why are they replacing? What does that mean? What a weird thing to chant. It turns out that it's an anti-Semitic chant, and I was unfamiliar with it because I'm not a neo-Nazi. And then once you saw the videos, and Vice did a great documentary on this, you see that they start with "You will not replace us," then they move to "Jews will not replace us." Apparently, in their crazy Council of Zion conspiracy theories, the Jews somehow replace everyone. I don't know.
Yeah, they also chanted. I mean, in the original Charlottesville rally, they also chanted "Blood and Soil," which was another sort of Nazi slogan as well.
Because everybody knows the Nazis are peace-loving people. Yeah, that's well documented. He keeps, and that's the other thing about these. He talks about getting triggered and stuff.
Yeah.
These are the most special snowflakes on the planet. You had 44.5 out of the 45 presidents if you're white, right? So he's like, there's no place for us. What, the half is the one that really triggered you? Like, no, there's wall-to-wall place for you here. The whites are still a majority of the country. They're overwhelmingly in power, etc. Now, if by us you mean neo-Nazis and racists and extreme right-wingers, yeah, I hope there's no place for you. Right, then we can have a debate.
Earlier in the speech too, I mean, this was, I watched the full thing that he put up on Periscope, unfortunately, because I saw all of the comments come through, which made me lose faith in humanity. But during his speech, he also talks about white privilege. Like, he recognizes that white people have privilege, but then says like, oh, you're not gonna replace us, you're trying to take over our land, this is ours. It's like, wait, like, which is it?
Yeah.
Do you have white privilege or are we taking over? Like, pick one. You don't get to flip-flop.
Yeah, that first video, that you played, his speech, much like the video itself, lacked focus. And that's the thing with Richard Spencer. If you let him speak, you see that point where he loses focus on what he's trying to say and he just starts babbling. But you kind of parse it down into this weird, he's imploring people to tear down the monuments. He's imploring them to go far and hit him. And he wants so much attention. There's all these different articles about what he actually wants. Some of them he says he wants some kind of safe ethno-state. He wants a safe European homeland, which I think that's Europe.
And he says, oh, these guys get triggered, they're snowflakes, they love to say stuff like that. And then he literally says he wants a safe space for Europeans.
Yeah, I don't know. I think what he wants is attention. I think what he wants probably is his dad to love him or something, or to have sex with, Jane or Hank or whoever it is that he wants to have sex with, and it isn't reciprocated. And he's gone and he's been frustrated his entire life, and it's turned into this crazy overreach and self-victimization that he's, projecting onto everyone. And that's the case with a lot of folks in this category. I think if he wants that safe space, because he wants the idea of like this Europe of peace to really be delivered on. But if you look at Europe, like World War I, World War II, that's Europeans all living in the same place, fighting each other.
Yeah, that was 100 Years' War. Almost every other war. I mean, Europe is not what I would call a safe space in history. And it wasn't like the Africans started those wars or the Jews. It was white Europeans who started an endless string of wars. But we're not holding it against them. That's crazy. We're all human beings. We're all the same. But he takes it as like, no, we're the special peace-loving guys.
It's the same thing. It's like we just want you to understand the complexity of the world.
Yes.
And you're trying to oversimplify. And I have a device to make all well. If you want that simple place where European culture is allowed to live in all its glory in a very simplified manner, go work at Epcot. Go to Epcot, go to the Norwegian village, go to the German area where you can just live in this idealistic version of the European ethno-state, have a beer. Ride that weird log flume ride with the trolls. Have a fantastic time, but leave it there.
I can see him.
I'll buy him a season pass.
He gets on the Small World ride, just gets off at like the one with all the like lederhosen.
Yeah.
He's like, yes, I made it home.
It's so funny because his entire speech is all about like history, right? And he goes in, he's like, this is, there's historical evidence, I'm here, this is our history, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, bro, like history is like you're an immigrant. You came and you took this land from somebody else, all right? And your people are immigrants too. So you don't get to say like, oh no, we're an okay immigrant, but other people not so much.
But he does that with white people. He does, that whole group, they put different differentiators among groups of white people. They want you, they sent out before their Charlottesville demonstration. They said, why don't you guys show up dressed this way with this haircut, looking this way, and we want to differentiate ourselves from the rednecks is their term.
But that's a rebranding thing because he doesn't like want to be perceived despite like the Nazi salutes and things like that. He doesn't want to be perceived like the KKK. Like there's articles out there that talk about how he's like, guys, this is not a good look for us. Let's just, we'll get an alternative name, and now we're gonna dress a little bit differently and put our Dockers on, and be this have the same messaging, but just do it in a different way.
He's not just a white supremacist. He's a white supremacist. He's like, I am the best kind of white supremacist, and every other white supremacist is below me.
This is like a racist Halloween where they play dress up with like different things. Okay, you guys take the redneck outfit, you get the hood. Okay, but remember guys, okay, we dress well because Nazis are way better than the KKK.
It's so weird.
And finally, the irony of him saying we built this and only us, when they literally, his ancestors that he's so proud of were so lazy that they wouldn't do their own farming, they wouldn't build anything, including the White House. They enslaved other people to do their work for them. Now, that doesn't mean that people of this generation did that. White people around today, you didn't do that, okay? But that is the history and the facts of what happened in the South, including in Virginia. And so to then turn around and perversely say blacks had no contribution and all the stereotypes that go along with that, when in reality they built the place, is counter-historical to say the least. And you know what, one last piece of irony, he like looks up to Europe and Northern Europe where the whites are and it's so fantastic. Northern Europe is socialist. They're the most left-wing place on the planet, okay? So if you actually love Northern Europeans, I love Northern Europeans, they're wonderfully socialist, right? Do likewise, but of course that's not what it's about. Brett's right, it's personal issues, not just for him, but all of his neo-Nazi followers. They all have massive issues, and unfortunately, they'd be a laughingstock and an irrelevant part of the current events of today if they didn't have a president who thought there were some very fine people in that crowd.
Yeah, he just needs to light like a nice smelling candle and take a bath, not a tiki torch.
Yes. All right, we got to take a quick break. I mean, one of the things that we're going to come back and talk about is Dove's ad. I don't know what in the world they were thinking. I mean, it's so over the top racist. I can't quite believe it. So, all right, I will show you what the ad is and we'll figure it out together. Come right back. Now, you guys are gonna think, especially my early behind the scenes footage, like I already went and looked at the comments in the member section. You guys, oh, he's high, he's drunk. I swear to you, I'm not. Well, I just tell you if I am, right? And so I get goofy in the behind the scenes stuff.
What's the need for the butter with this pretzel? This is already super fattening it up. You don't need to put butter on this thing. Why'd they make me do it, Bitsy? Why'd they make me do it?
Hey, I'm just saying that this is known as the rear end guy. There's no way that every person he knows doesn't call him the rear end guy. I want you guys to see if you could see the lightning bugs. Whoa. Light them up. Light them up.
Is it true, Ritzy? I will now watch it later.
Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat. Imagine him, isn't it? Hey, Kiki Cat. Kiki Cat. All right, this is Kiki Cat signing out.
I've been honest with him. Like, yeah, I was upset with you and I should have done it. But instead I was like, I'm just trying to protect my engagement ring.
Welcome back to TYT Sports. Jason and Francis here. This is where everybody has to listen. Welcome to TYT Sports, everybody. I am your host, Francis Maxwell. Jason here. Welcome to TYT Sports. Turks and Jerks, TYT Sports.
Steph Curry signed with Under Armour.
Tom Brady's mad, by the way.
Do you hear me?
Back on TYT Sports! Actually, leave a link in the description box below instead of lying about leaving a link in the description box below.
Editor, throw up another picture of the UK bacon. And another. And in fact, throw in another one.
Let me see your belly.
Beast mode.
Hey, Cenk, what's up?
Aaron, I'm reading some of the comments on a YouTube video I did. What's a cuck? Go. Back on a Young Turks, Cenk, Brett, and Hannah with you. Member shout-outs are James Jones, used to be a decent receiver for the Packers, and Karen Gadwell, but only decent, and Karen Gadwell. So you guys are awesome. Thank you for being members. You make the show possible. You make independent media possible, and you get the whole network ad-free, of course, if you're a member. And today in the postgame, we're going to talk about some insider stories from my trip to DC. Those are always fun and interesting, and I think informative. I leave out all names and references because all that stuff's off the record, so I can't tell you who said it and stuff like that. But I can give you a general sense of what Washington is thinking these days.
Great.
So that's going to be interesting. And hey, members, tomorrow I got a live interview at 11 a.m. Eastern with Naomi Klein. So everybody gets to see it 24 hours later. So we're not keeping it from anyone. But if you're a member, you get to watch it live as it happens. tytnetwork.com/members live tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern to watch the full interview with Naomi Klein. All right, Hannah. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just do tweets real quick, and then I'll kick over to you. Actually, our own Bart Kyle tweets in. Fun fact reminder, Columbus didn't set foot on North America. He instead got lost in trying to find a new route to India. He wound up setting foot and discovering the Bahamas. That is true. I don't know why we're having Columbus Day. Maybe the good folks in Bahamas, they should consider it, but don't. And they would never probably would.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I Am Sock writes in, Columbus was the original bad hombre. Oh, by the way, that reminds me, I did a story about Puerto Rico too. We now have on shoptyt.com nasty t-shirts because the mayor of San Juan wore a shirt that said nasty on it in an interview for Nasty Woman. So, especially for women, but guys can wear it too. I have mine. I'll probably wear it in one of the old school episodes.
Yeah, I feel like we've owned Nasty Woman and Bad Hombre now. Now it's cool to be those things because you're part of the resistance.
Yeah. Oh, now we got to do a Bad Hombre t-shirt.
Yeah,
okay.
a little bit.
If you're nasty though, you have to call Janet Jackson Miss Jackson. I just want to bring that back up from the 80s for people who, if you buy it, you now have to call her Miss Jackson if you're nasty.
Okay, that is very fair. Shoptyt.com for those shirts, and then and of course to hear the post game and join us is tytnetwork.com/join to become a member. All right, Hannah, what's next?
An FBI report from August has recently been discovered identifying Black identity extremists as a terrorist threat. Now, I read through this report and it reads that the FBI assesses it is very likely Black identity extremist, or BIE, perceptions of police brutality against African Americans spurred an increase in premeditated, retaliatory, lethal violence against law enforcement and will very likely serve as justification for such violence. The FBI assess it is very likely this increase began following the August 9th, 2014 shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. And the FBI assesses it is very likely incidents of alleged police abuse against African Americans since then have continued to feed the resurgence in ideologically motivated violent criminal activity within the BIE movement. So I want to read you more from this report, but I do want you to pay attention to some of the terminology that they're using here. And I tried to really emphasize it when I was speaking, but they say perceptions of police brutality, alleged police abuse, because apparently, according to the FBI, it's not that these people who are committing these acts of violence are mad about the racism. They're apparently being irrational in their reactions to the racism, according to the FBI.
And before you go on, Hannah, I just want to know for the record, there is no such thing as Black identity extremists.
No.
Well, there is now because it's in a piece of paper. Like they wrote it down. I mean, that's the sad truth is now they've created a category that they can funnel people into.
Well, I mean, basically what they're doing is they're trying to relabel, the BLM as something that it's not. That's what they're trying to do. I mean, it's pretty obvious as you read throughout here that it's all about Black Lives Matter movement, but they just sort of rephrased it so that they're not as explicit with how racist they're being. Now they cite violence against police officers as a reason for this identification. They go into the FBI judges very likely BIE perceptions of police brutality against African Americans have become organizing drivers for the BIE movement since 2014. I think that's another sort of, they're very clearly alluding to the BLM movement, resulting in a spike of BIEs intentionally targeting law enforcement with violence. And they say even though these 5 of these attacks occurred following controversial police shootings of African Americans by white police officers, the BIE targeting of officers was not in every incident based on specific race. Now they go into in great detail all of the violence against police officers, yet they don't do any sort of detail about violence against black people. And they just continue and go into this. And the FBI has a pretty thorough record of being pretty racist. I mean, when you look at the counterintelligence programs that they used to carry out and still continue to carry out, they've always sort of like, they targeted the Black Panthers, they targeted Martin Luther King, they targeted people during the civil rights movement. This is not a new game for them.
So, I've praised the FBI recently because I think they've done some good work in thwarting some potential domestic terrorism in the country, whether it was by Islamic radicals or others. But we got to keep it real on a couple of fronts. So during the Bush administration, the FBI was going to look into right-wing extremism. Not to say that it's all right-wingers who do it. Of course not. A lot of the folks who work at the FBI also are right-wing. Some I'm sure are left-wing, etc. Right? But it was to say there are actual groups like the 3%ers, the Oath Keepers, and I'm not saying those guys, I don't know the details of each one of those groups, but there are specific militias and groups who have agitated towards violence. So now that report was written in the Bush administration, it was released during the Obama administration, and the right wing flipped out. And so Rush Limbaugh, Fox News, they said, oh my God, they're targeting us. When the report didn't say that, they said these specific groups, we should make sure. And if you know the facts, you would know that that is a very reasonable thing to do because actually right-wing extremists in this country commit terrorism at twice the rate of Islamic radicals. Now, it's disproportionate per capita anyway, so it's not like you should ignore Islamic radicals. That's a definite problem. What we would ask the FBI to do is to treat all this fairly and then look to see what the real threats are. Now, is there a group that belongs in the now made up category of black identity extremists? There isn't. There is no self-proclaimed group, black group, that's going around saying we should consider violence. We shouldn't listen to the rules or laws of the country, as some of the right-wing groups say. They say if a judge makes an order, it gives an order, some of the right-wing groups say it has no authority over me because of the Constitution and I don't pay taxes, etc. There is no real equivalent of that for black groups. This is just a way of saying, I don't know, separate mass shooters, and in those cases, like in Dallas, Louisiana, they did hit cops, but they were not part of organizations. In fact, the one in Dallas that killed the 5 officers was actively rejected from every black group he tried to join. So there's no movement. It's like saying, okay, how can I take the mass shooter in Vegas and somehow connect him to the mass shooter in Colorado and call it white identity extremists? That makes no sense, right? And so that's why this is, if they were trying to track a movement that was dangerous to cops, of course you should do that. But in this case, you invented a category that doesn't exist for a movement that doesn't exist. And of course, the real problem is, one, you're wasting resources, and don't do that because you've actually done some pretty good work otherwise. And number 2 is you're now saying, winking and nodding to some FBI agents, if they have that proclivity, just target black groups, whether they had anything to do with the violence or not.
Yeah, when you're talking about violence with black groups, it's often perpetrated against them. I mean, you look at these peaceful protests where police officers are throwing, tear gas and like things on them and being extremely violent towards them. You know what I mean? It's not often the other way around. And this does sort of, you're right, it's like sort of like a wink and a nod. Okay, we said that the alt-right and people who identify as like white supremacists and things like that are a significant domestic terrorist threat, but also we'll add this in to make sure that we're like covering our bases and not pissing off enough people. Whereas like people within like the BLM movement and things like that often talk about peaceful protesting. Whereas on the flip side of that, Richard Spencer says that he's not afraid of violence and a bloody revolution to achieve what he wants. It's like, okay, it boggles my mind that the Bureau cannot look at those two, like that compares them, right? It boggles my mind that they can compare them, and it boggles my mind that they don't see that and are not targeting that more effectively.
The only ideology, that I've seen is an ideology of equality, justice, and fairness. That's what people want. The danger just by having this term out there is you're going to funnel people who believe in equality, justice, and fairness just by where they are, the fact that they're at a protest and the FBI are looking at them, into this category that didn't exist until they wrote it down. I mean, the question is, it doesn't exist as a category because there's no one that fits it.
Right.
Just by virtue of they're trying to connect all these different chords that don't connect. But now people can be put into it. They're gonna start with the guy who shot the police officers. And that is one person who committed a violent act, and they're just going to take anyone it's going to get looser and more and more loosely affiliated with an act of violence into a potential for an act of violence, which, they seem to be pretty angry holding signs. Well, of course they're angry holding signs because they want equality, justice, and fairness, and they're not getting it. But they're not violent, and this gives the FBI an ability to classify them as such, and that's not fair.
It gives the FBI the ability to classify them as such, but it also gives just your everyday person the ability to classify them as such as well. When you think about how people, run with the Islamic extremists and things like that, and the way that they perpetuate that term and perpetuate bigotry, now they have a new term to use against black people, and it's fucked up.
Yeah. And look, we got all those protests in St. Louis, and our own reporter Jordan Chariton and our cameraman Ty Bayless were arrested during those protests for just covering protests. Well, stuff like this allows them to justify it and go, well, anyone who's protesting who's of a black identity is a potential extremist. So that's why we have this category. If you did it to white people and you said, okay, because some neo-Nazi did some violence in Charlottesville, any Tea Party protest is potential extremists, that would be outrageous and it would be unjustified. So let's spend our resources on actually addressing potential extremists and terrorists that might do us damage. The FBI has done some good work about that in the past. Let's go back to that instead of going down this wrong road. Okay, look, we don't have much time left. Sorry guys, we're gonna do the Dove story. I'm gonna keep it for the online audience because we're gonna run out of time otherwise. But I think we can squeeze in the cocaine story. So can we skip ahead to cocaine?
Yes. After the Miami Dolphins coach made 3 of his players stay inside the tunnel during the national anthem because they wanted to protest, a model has released a video of one of the assistant coaches allegedly snorting cocaine to get back at the coach for this decision. Take a look at this video.
Hey babe, miss you, thinking about you. How about me going to a meeting and doing this before I go? There's those big grains falling, but I miss you. I miss you a lot. What do you think? Crazy? No, babe. It's gonna be a while before we can do this again, because I know you're gonna keep that baby. But I think about you when I do it. I think about how much I miss you, how high we got together, how much fun it was. So much fun. The last little bit before I go to my meeting. Is that fucked up, babe? You think? I think not. I wish I was looking this.
You can imagine what he says next. He has since resigned. He says that he is going to be spending time with his family and medical professionals.
Okay, I don't know what my favorite part of that video was. The particles falling out of his nose. I know we can't do this for a while because I know you're gonna keep that baby.
Oh my God.
Or I wish this was licking your.
The baby one for me.
Yes,
because it's like, wow, it's like a whole extra deep level of her pregnancy. It's like some kind of soap opera stuff.
The only thing that I do want to say about this video is that a lot of people, a lot of articles since then have been talking about who she is and why she would want to publicly embarrass him like this and blah, blah, blah. Like, let's not focus on her. Let's focus on why these people are protesting, why they should have the ability to protest, and the fact that this guy is like snorting on company properties.
Yeah, so look, I would actually have sympathy with him. I think that drugs should be legalized. He seems to care for her and doesn't want to endanger her baby. There's a lot of upsides for him, right? And she did, look, it is a little bit of a betrayal of trust on her part, but in a league that keeps somebody out of the league for kneeling during the anthem, in a league that gives draconian punishment for just smoking marijuana, if one of the coaches is doing cocaine, I guess he's gotta go, and yes, he stepped down. He has a different kind of meeting to go to now. Okay, we're out of time here, guys. We are gonna continue, including that Dove ad online. tytnetwork.com. So we'll be right back. All right, we're back. Hannah's got 2 more stories for you guys, but before we move on, the last story about the Dolphins coach, I just want to know for the record that what Jerry Jones and Stephen Ross are doing is really despicable. So the Miami owner was actually for a little while a good guy and was okay with his players kneeling and understood that they are protesting police brutality and that's an important issue for them. I hope it's an important issue for all of us, but but then they turn around because of pressure from Trump and they said now it's about patriotism and they're going to punish any of their players who kneel.
Right, it's because Trump made it about patriotism.
Yeah.
And they're mad at the players now for kneeling. But the players didn't make it about patriotism, Trump did. So you should be mad at Trump for mischaracterizing the nature of the protest in the first place. A protest which has been very explicitly stated to be about inequality and police brutality, and by soldiers, like an ex-Green Beret NFL veteran who has said that it was specifically kneeling to be respectful like soldiers do on the battlefield. So that is there. It is written very explicitly, and to back Trump for, and to explicitly say Trump made it about something else. So I'm gonna turn tail and I gotta be with him now. It's such a weak position and it's despicable.
But that's Trump's shtick. You know what I mean? He tries to commandeer these terms that are from the other side or these movements that are from the other side and spin it to play in his favor or to try to manipulate people into doing. And especially with these owners who now sort of turned their opinion and turned their minds on this one, like it worked. It worked. His rebranding worked.
The Jerry Jones thing, because he got he and the Dallas Cowboys together came up with this idea to kind of have it both ways. Was they were going to kneel before the anthem and then stand for the anthem as it played, which I think ended up being a really smart approach because there were so many people that booed them still, and they booed the Dallas Cowboys for standing during the national anthem and kneeling before it. And Scott Van Pelt had a great thing on his show where he's like, if you're still mad, you were mad that they were kneeling during the anthem, so they stopped kneeling during the anthem, but still did their protest in a different situation outside of the protest of the anthem. You just want to be mad.
But I love how kneeling is sort of like this silent and very peaceful form of protest. And people are so upset about that, them kneeling during the national anthem, but they're okay with booing during the national anthem or screaming obscenities during the national anthem. I mean,
walking out.
Yeah.
In a story that Hannah covered on Friday, Richard Spencer and the neo-Nazis were doing the Heil Hitler salute during the Star Spangled Banner that Milo was singing. That seems a little bit more disrespectful of our country than
Yeah,
kneeling.
but again, Richard Spencer really struggles with the history thing.
Yeah.
He's like, no, we want to be like the Nazis, even though technically we fought them.
Yeah.
He doesn't get it.
Okay, super last thing on this. The Miami coach kept 3 players in the tunnel and didn't let them come out during the anthem. Kenny Stills, Julius Thomas, and Mike Thomas, who are among their best players, although with the Dolphins these days, that's standing with faint praise. But anyway, it's really gross to say to those players, you're not allowed to join the rest of the team because we're now punishing you for your political opinions because the president asked us to. It's both gross and unconstitutional. And if I was them, I mean, that is deeply fucking offensive. I don't want to get off that team as soon as possible.
Yeah.
All right, let's go do Dove.
Dove has apologized after posting a Facebook video that many are calling racist. Take a look.
Okay, I think
I think we got it. All right. Okay. So essentially, many people are saying that Dove is trying to whitewash the first woman in this video. Now, obviously, a lot of people on Twitter went crazy and they have issued an apology saying, an image we recently posted on Facebook missed the mark in representing women of color thoughtfully. We deeply regret the offense it caused. Now, Dove, as many of you know, has been pretty good at sort of expanding our perceptions of beauty with their Real Beauty campaign and the way that they talk about beauty blind spots that we have in the media. That said, they have made a few missteps in the past. Let's look at some other of their missteps. Here, this is from 2011, saying before and then after, and it going from an African-American woman to a white woman. And then here with a summer glow that they, a summer glow lotion that they sell, where it says normal to dark skin.
That's the one.
What is normal? Excuse me?
That's the one that's just, come on guys.
How? Do better. Do
That's
better.
the one that gets me. It's just,
So there's a lot to unpack in this. I think the biggest issue is like when you look at Dove and you look at some of the other ways that beauty brands talk about beauty, often whiteness is associated with like cleanliness and purification. And so I think that's people's issue with this particular video is that they're perpetuating that kind of screwed up ideology.
Yeah, and there's a history of this in the soap industry that goes back a long, long time. That's why I think they have to be a little bit more cognizant of it and careful with it. But I also want to say though that it's not as straightforward. Like a lot of the articles have just the black woman turning into a white woman and makes it seem like she's getting cleaner. And so people are enraged by that. And if that's all you see, I understand why you'd be enraged. But then the white woman turns into kind of a brown woman, so well, then it's not about washing the black off of you, as they have literally done in the soap industry in the past, those kinds of ads, right? So it just feels more like a mistake than it feels anything malicious at all.
So I think what they were trying to do is that like we work for all skin types, normal to dark, despite that issue. But I think that we work for all skin types, and we were talking about it early in the production meeting. I wonder if there would have been the same reaction if it was they started with the white girl. Yeah, Do you know what I mean? If they started with the white girl and had that be the starting one and not have the black model sort of whitewashed essentially. You know what I mean? Like I wonder if the same reaction would have existed.
I can't look at this and determine beyond a shadow of a doubt that Dove was being racist. Like I just don't see it because it goes from black to white to brown. And the idea, their thrust of their campaign is and has been like for all skin types. Now their wording of normal to dark is the one that people should say, what are you doing? You just made white normal and dark abnormal. And that's what you mean, because if there is a normal and then there's a dark, then dark is abnormal. That's the one you should go after. That said, the legacy of hundreds of years of soap ads where it's like, you can take a black baby and use our soap and it'll be white as the morning dew or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of stuff that Dove needs to be aware of. But in this, what happened was a lot of people took 2 screen caps. There was a black person and then they became a white person and then they just shot that out all over the place because it's very difficult to find that video that you see here now.
Yeah, they took it down.
And then Ava DuVernay pointed out the wording of Dove's ad to say we missed the mark is another way. So here, yeah, you see the 3, but the wording of Ava DuVernay's objection was to their apology, which said we missed the mark, and she's like that's too flip. And she acknowledges that Dove has, as you said, done a lot in the way of exploring, expanding your definition of beauty. But in this situation, it's just it's not there.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: is I agree with you that this ad alone might be hard to sort of like discern whether or not they had like racist intentions. Like I don't think they had racist intentions, but I do think when you are in a room full of like ad execs and marketing execs and people who are looking at this over and over again, it's hard not to see something like this and be like, hey, like, let's look at the, the history of soap ads. Let's talk about like the way that we've always talked about like white is pure and things like that. In addition to the fact that like there's still a lot of products on the market now in different countries and in different cultures that talk about trying to like achieve that white ideal, like skin whitening lotion and things like that. So like these are things that you need to take into an account when you're putting something out like this. I don't think it was, purposeful, but you just need to like do a little research.
We talked about it on Pop Trigger today, and this gives everyone an opportunity to go find out more about. Like it's fascinating and heartbreaking, the legacy of soap, and Darren Dean on our show was talking about like the different skin lightening creams and all of the pressure it puts on people to get lighter, and that is a tragedy, and that's something that shouldn't be around, and that's what we need to dig into. I just think that this is a study in people taking 2 screen caps and putting something there that isn't there explicitly.
Yeah, so if you just see the black girl turning into a white girl, it just seems over the top racist, and I think that's the only thing that anyone is seeing. Not anyone, but a lot of people are only seeing that. And so I've seen some people on Twitter saying like, I don't even want the explanation. I mean, this is so wrong, I don't want the explanation. But don't do that, because sometimes the explanation does give you more clarity. And yeah, I mean, if they had gone black to brown to white, that's worse.
Right, that would have been.
Right? and in one of the ads earlier that Hannah just showed you, they kind of did that with the before and after.
Yeah.
And here, more diversity might have, in the boardroom might have helped a little bit. But I don't know who was in the room. And they might have thought, well, we went black to white to brown, so it's okay. But at least know the full context of it. And so it's obviously a mistake because it blew up on them. At the same time, adding the brown girl at the end makes a giant difference.
Yeah, I don't think it's as overt as people are making it out to be.
And for me, there's a cynicism, like my cynicism kicks in. It's like, in a way I can interpret it that you're like using like you guys being the woke brand to sell more soap. And that's where I come down. It's like, oh, it does feel like we're throwing in the brown girl at the end, so we've already checked that box. Like that's a cynicism I can kind of go to say like, I don't know about Dove. Are they just trying to sell more soap?
But that I don't mind at all, because of course they're trying to sell more soap. They're a soap company, and so if they want to use diversity to sell the soap, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. They just screwed it up here, so they'll strain it out, and I think that
it's a learning lesson.
Yeah, I think that we can get past this. It's not like there's a million really important racial issues in the country.
Right.
This is not the thing to take a knee over. That's my opinion. Okay. All right, last story.
All right. Right-wingers are pissed at the American Nazi killing in the video game Wolfenstein 2. Now, they posted a video teasing the new video game on their Twitter. Take a look. All right, so they posted this video with the caption, "Make America Nazi Free Again." Hashtag no more Nazis. And many people were very upset by this. Some commenting that they didn't know that Bethesda, which is the game studio behind this game, teamed with SJWs and Antifa. Other people said, don't inject leftist propaganda and take advantage of current events in our political landscape to try and sell your product and expect anyone with half a brain to not notice.
Well, they found people with half a brain and it seems like they noticed.
Further, the VP of Public Relations and Marketing of Bethesda said that Wolfenstein has been a game decidedly anti-Nazi series since the first release more than 20 years ago. We aren't going to shy away from what the game is about. We don't feel it's a reach for us to say Nazis are bad and un-American, and we're not worried about being on the right side of history here. Further, in Wolfenstein's case, it's pure coincidence that Nazis are marching in the streets of America this year, and it's disturbing that the game can be considered a controversial political statement at all. And I think that's the biggest point of this, right? Like the fact that people are upset that people are shooting Nazis, even if they're in the streets in America, is a real big issue that we need to address.
Do you know how long it takes to develop a video game? The last Grand Theft Auto came out like 7 years ago. They're putting it off because they have one video game they've been working on for the last 5 years. Like it takes so long to do this. It takes longer than it takes to develop and shoot a movie, to develop and make a video game. So this, guys, is not something that they just decided to throw together because this was in the news. This game came out in 1981. The original Apple IIG, Octung, you run around and try to get away from the Nazis who are trying to capture you. This is not new.
That said, even if it was new and they were shooting at Nazis in the streets, Nazis are still bad. Whether it happens, whether they made it a month ago or they made it 4 or 5 years ago, whatever. Still, we don't want Nazis in our streets, and the fact that people are fighting this and saying, "Oh, this is the leftist agenda." It should be everybody's agenda not to have Nazis in the street. I can't handle it anymore. I mean, I don't understand.
Okay, now look, I'm going to do the most tepid defense of all time of the other side, but I'm going to note that look, the one thing that they did have control over that is recent is the slogan, and then they did say, "Make America Nazi Free Again." So that is an obvious reference to the Trump slogan.
Yeah,
okay.
No, that's why people were upset because they were commandeering that phrase and using his "Make America," but wouldn't it be a great America to not have Nazis? I feel like those are not.
So that's exactly.
We fought a war over
slogans.
Yeah. So then now let me join you guys. Okay. So
that is a good point.
First, if you thought "Make America Great Again" is a great slogan and it's wonderful, and it's not at all racist or anti-Semitic or anything like that, you'd think well, making America great would also make it Nazi free. And you wouldn't take any offense at that. You'd be like, yeah, of course, that's part of making America great. But you're getting touchy on it for some reason. You got triggered for a reason, right? So I think just look into why you got triggered by that, and why you need the safe space from a video game.
It's because of, if you look at Trump's rhetoric, both sides, and so he's separated the right as that, and they put them all in the same group, the alt-right and people who are more conservative and right-wing and Nazis and everything. He put them in one group essentially, and then it was oh, and the left is on the other side, and it's what?
Yeah.
He set that up.
And thank you, by the way. If that was actually true, and it isn't, but it would be the whole country versus a really small group of racists. And so if that's your vision of the right wing, you're doing more damage to the right wing than any of us could possibly do. So, so that's super obvious. And to Brett's point, fighting Nazis in video games is as old as video games. That can't in any way be controversial. And then finally, my favorite thing is, and a lot of people use these, unfortunately, not just the alt-right, but a lot of folks get off on calling people social justice warriors, right? First of all, just break down the phrase. It's kind of hilarious. Okay, so I'm a warrior for justice.
Sounds bad.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. You know what? And you know who were social justice warriors fighting Nazis? The greatest generation. The generation we revere the most in America, Americans who literally were warriors fighting for justice against the Nazis.
Yeah, these guys are so. There's the other side. They want to be martyrs. They want to be victims. They want you to feel bad for them, and I just don't.
Sorry.
And this game looks so good. I watched the extended trailer for this game. Oh my God, it looks so good.
Yeah.
This girl has like a pet robot dog that shoots fire. I can't wait.
I mean, just think though, like kind of off what you were saying, Jink, like 50 years ago when we were like a little bit more close to the World War II, like people would have been like, fuck yeah, shoot the Nazis, da da da. But like in that short span of time, 50 years is not that long. People have like completely forgotten and it's been totally transformed and like, how dare we shoot the Nazis?
And I am gonna go out on a limb of what I've learned from playing games like this recently. What they'll have is a bunch of characters who all make up different perspectives on the positives and negatives, and you as a, typically you as a player can choose what side you want to align with. So there will, I mean, I saw in the thing there's people who take different sides of the debate of why there should be Nazis in America, why there shouldn't be Nazis in America, and there's differences on the anti-Nazi side versus militant versus peaceful. And so I'm pretty sure from what I saw in the trailer, you will see a far more nuanced approach to this than the alt-right is making it out to be. And that's actually, I don't even know what to make of that.
So, all right, last thing. Look, I'm not a guy who thinks we should go punch Nazis in the face in America in the real world, whether it's Richard Spencer or not. I don't think violence is the right answer. But this is not the real world. It's a fucking video game, right? And we do violence in video games. We do it in movies, we do it in rap songs. We've done it forever. We do it in country songs because they're not real. And if you can't get off on killing Nazis in a video game, then don't play video games. Okay. So we're done for the show. I do have that post game for you guys where I talk about the state of Washington, as although
not the state of Washington,
the state of the District of Columbia.
That's right. And I was just there for a couple of days, 3-4 days, and how much I love and hate our nation's capital. In the post game, tytnetwork.com/join to become a member and hear that. And don't forget Naomi Klein tomorrow morning. 11 a.m. Eastern, members get to watch live. So we'll see you there. Bye-bye.